Hello there guys, what is going on? Daniel Childs back here again for another show. Hope you're doing well. I'm down under. Welcome to Brisbane. Behind me there, I have been here for almost a week now. Not going to be here for that much longer because England start their World Cup campaign on Saturday night. And then going to be moving to Sydney for the second week. So yeah, a lot of travelling, and apologies for the lack of videos this week. It has been some journey and some mission getting used to, the Australian time zone, basically the time difference. The jet lag has got me. It is seriously no joke in terms of getting used to it. So for anyone else making the trip out here this summer for the World Cup, or just generally to Australia, be prepared for that, because it was a pretty brutal journey and it's taken me some time to adjust. But obviously, we're going to talk about the Wrexham game. Hopefully some of you are still interested to hear my thoughts, because time zones wise and also Wi-Fi, being able to get this up, it will be of course quite a bit later, but we will reflect more generally on it and kind of my thoughts about it, because I was really encouraged. We can all throw our hands up and say it's a League Two side in Wrexham. It's the first game of pre-season. But, I felt that the fact that Pochettino went with such a young group of players to start that match, and the fact that so many of them performed really impressively, I think the reaction and just the tempo of Chelsea's play was just better than anything we saw. To contrast it to last pre-season, like that performance, that intensity of performance was just, we didn't see any of that last summer. Like none of the games represented that, and that was with an experienced group of players, or a more experienced group of players. And this is one of the things that people have been discussing around Chelsea in the past few weeks, is that the lack of experience we have. But, as I've said, Pochettino, I trust a younger group with Pochettino more than maybe an older experienced group, and that experience hasn't really got Chelsea much rewards in recent years. So I'll just get on my other phone here, because I am recording on one phone, the starting lineup, and I think it was the main thing was seeing Ian Maatsen, Moreira, Santos, Caicedo, and of course Nicholas Jackson. The speed of Nicholas Jackson, that's the first thing that comes to mind, because of course he helps out the first goal for Ian Maatsen, and I was really encouraged by Jackson. I felt that just rapid, really rapid, again against League Two or just recently conference defenders, but at the same time I felt that his judgment with the ball, really quick feet too. And you can just see how it's going to work with him, especially in the second half when Nkunku came on, and seeing how, if Chelsea, it's this kind of age-old thing of, if we can find passes to him over the top especially, I think he becomes a really, really effective player. So, he really got off the mark well, and even though he didn't score a goal, I felt he was really, really impressive. Obviously, Ian Maatsen too. Maatsen has played as a winger. He played, as you probably know by now, with Cobham graduates, they play pretty much everywhere. And I mainly think back to his loan at Charlton, where he did play, I think, on the right wing. And I remember him scoring a very important goal for Charlton that season. So he has played in these positions. And the first one was a simple tap-in, but, good moment to beat it. The second one was a brilliant finish with his right foot. I mean, it was right into the bottom corner. And I felt for Maatsen, it was a real statement of intent, given this is someone who, the amount of left backs we have. I think that the way the club should be looking at it is that Lewis Hall is not purely a left back. He is a midfielder, and he can be used as a midfielder. He can be used potentially as a left midfielder too in a 4-2-3-1, I think. So it's not just about thinking, we've got too many left backs and we can't keep Ian Maatsen. I think we can keep Ian Maatsen, because I just think the talent is so abundantly clear, and the fact that he wasn't really playing in his preferred position, the one that he excelled in for Burnley last season, I think tells you a lot. He was really effective, and I felt the way him and Jackson, kind of Santos, Moreira, Caicedo impressed me. I think Caicedo, it's not just his technique, I think it's his imposing nature in central midfield. I mean, that is something that Chelsea just haven't had, and whenever we get a tall midfielder, I think now I sort of just go hallelujah, basically. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Caicedo kind of develops during this pre-season. Will he be one of those players that actually remains in the first team squad, or will he go out on loan, which I think some of these players will. And then in the second half, it was great to see Nkunku come on, and it was great to see him score a goal that he scored quite regularly at RB Leipzig. Rounding the keeper, very composed finish, and I thought that was just brilliant, really, for him personally to get off the mark, to score a goal, and of course, just before then, Conor Gallagher, with his new man bun seemingly giving him new powers with Pochettino, another strike from distance, which for a midfielder to score from distance I thought was really good, and I think he's going to be a player that's going to be used a lot with Pochettino. I just don't see the logic in selling Conor Gallagher no matter what fee comes in. You've already sold so many first team midfielders this summer. I think you're just doing yourself a detriment when the attributes of that player, maybe not what we saw last season because it was chaotic, but when he was at Palace especially and coming through the Euro Franks at Chelsea, they just match up so perfectly with Mauricio Pochettino. So it was great to see him score. Then we had the Nkunku goal, and then got to give credit to debutant Gabriel for setting up Ben Chilwell. Ben Chilwell diagonal runs are love. Ben Chilwell diagonal runs are life. I just great to see Chilwell with the armband too. And just those brilliant runs he makes, so effective. And it was a great pass and a sumptuous finish too. And the kit, let's just talk about the kit for a sec. I mean, just extraordinary kit. I mean, I'm praying nothing changes and you're able to buy that thing sponsorless next month, because just brilliant design, looks brilliant on the players, and hopefully it will be a kit that is remembered fondly for some good memories this season. Just on sort of a broader note, I think that, well, firstly, you don't want to go overboard with like patterns and stuff, and at the end of the day, it is a pre-season friendly, it is the first, and that, especially that starting lineup, I mean, I don't know how many of those are going to feature in a lineup that faces Liverpool next month. If I'm just being completely honest, I could see Jackson, I could potentially see Ian Maatsen, Chalobah definitely after the injury to Wesley Fofana. But I think, you have to understand that there is going to be a lot of rotation as expected. I mean, Malo Gusto, Reece James obviously ill, not injured, but I expect Reece will take his place too. And in the left back position, we know Chilwell is going to take the place of Cucurella or Hall or Maatsen, whoever, he's going to be first choice. So there is that factor. But I also think to give these players some chances, I think is also important. Think back to again, sorry to sort of dampen the mood by thinking back to last summer, but last summer was such a mess. And the problem was last summer, it wasn't just the fact that there was such a lack of energy or anything from those group of players that preceded a really, really terrible season. It was the fact that Tuchel gave kind of no or very limited chances to young players to show anything and to show that actually there could be an internal solution. I always think that's what pre-season, along with everything else that it's supposed to be to get you ready for a season. I think it also at times can be a place, especially with an academy that Chelsea have, to find some internal solutions, to find players that potentially, like Chalobah did 2 years ago, to make a claim that they can be in the first team, and you don't have to go out and spend like 60 million on someone new. So hopefully we see a bit more of that. But I expect, obviously, as the games ramp up, as we go through, isn't it, Fulham, Brighton, I know is one of the game, Dortmund too. I'm sure by the time we get to Dortmund, just before the season starts, that will, I expect, be a more senior team, or one that will look like the one that faces Liverpool. Let's just wrap up another few things. Fofana, I mean, just nightmare, really. I just feel so sorry for the bloke, because he comes into Chelsea and he gets injured very quickly and he's missing for most of the season. I think he comes back and actually has some very, very strong performances. But this is a real knockback. I don't think the response to this is to go and buy someone personally. I think that this just gives more incentive to say, Levi Colwill, you're one of our big players this season, and there's a very strong chance that Levi Colwill starting against Liverpool because of this. Benoit Badiashile is also injured, but we suspect that Badiashile will be back sooner than Fofana will. But for Fofana, we just see this with players, right? I mean, some players and he's had some really, really bad luck with injuries. And it's kind of hard to put a positive spin on it, because when you see the injuries rack up over a period of time, it shows you how difficult it is for a player who also just so relies on his explosion and his ability to cover space very quickly. That's the case for most footballers, but I think especially for a defender who is as proactive as Fofana is, and that's why we spent so much money on him, this is a real knockback. He is still young. There is still a lot of years for him to grow and get better. But for a player that I thought would have been a regular starter for Chelsea, I think it's a real knock, obviously. But then I look at the other side of it. Trevor Chalobah, I think, who captained the side at the start. I think this is his moment. I really do. I think once again, the proof is there that Trevor Chalobah is a very, very valuable player to this Chelsea squad, not just to cover spaces for others, but to be a first-team player. And again, the idea of selling him, I just think is ludicrous. You sell him, it's more so for the player. If he isn't going to be appreciated by the club, I would say, yeah, go elsewhere and get minutes like at Inter Milan in the Champions League. But for Chelsea, when we look at Chalobah, when we look at his consistency of performance since he broke through as a young defender, I don't know what else you could have asked for him over the past 2 seasons. And for me, I think he is the natural one to fill that role. And of course, we forget Thiago Silva. The brilliance of Silva. You can never underestimate his experience. One of those experienced players that you can rely on, that you do think is going to offer what that age should be giving you. So all round, that's it really. I'm intrigued to see the Caicedo deal, because there's been some murmurings that may just reach a resolution, but you're still kind of a little bit. You have to be aware of Brighton's stance, but I think when you get a player pushing heavily, when you get obviously Chelsea putting in very firm offers. I know Ben Jacobs was saying, even though their latest bid has been rejected, it does kind of lay the groundwork for a negotiation. And I think that Brighton, like maybe with Leicester with Fofana last year, and we see this so many times, we saw this with Mason Mount and Chelsea, there comes a breaking point, and there comes a point where I think, a club knows that there is money to be made there. And I think 9 times out of 10, the club will jump at that money, especially a club like Brighton, because Caicedo may fall off a cliff in form-wise. He may get a serious injury that means you aren't able to get the fee the same for him in a year's time. Hopefully for Chelsea that isn't the case, in terms of his trajectory still going up, but hopefully, because it is the big signing. It is. There's no two ways around it. I mean, the midfield looks so light in terms of options, and especially defensive options at that. So hopefully that gets resolved. So those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Just if you want to see all the content I'm doing out here in Australia, please go and follow the @OurWomen'sFootball accounts on TikTok, on Instagram, on Twitter. That is where I'm going to be posting my content as we get closer to England's first game on Saturday, and then into the rest of the tournament. So thank you guys for watching. Follow me on Twitter @SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again very soon. All the best.